Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right, we're here. Hello, Allison. Nice to see you. Here for my weekly live. So glad to have you here if you are here. This is where I go live inside my community, as well as on my Instagram, and we talk about vocal stuff. So put any questions you have in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them how I see them. This is basically whatever you want to talk about. I always have an idea of what I want to talk about. Sometimes I don't, I just let it happen. But today, if you don't have any specific questions, which you're still free to post in the chat, I usually have a lot to say about the mind and the nervous system. And so I like to talk about how the nervous system and the mind gets in the way of doing a lot of the things that we want to do as singers. And I think that's a very important piece that not a lot of people cover. So that's a lot of what I talk about. You'll probably noticed if you've been following me on my Instagram, I don't do a lot of like, try this exercise for belting higher, because that's something that a lot of other vocal coaches do. And I'm going to leave that to them and talk about the stuff that matters on a deeper level, because that's what I like to do. I like to get deep. So I've been thinking a lot lately about this idea of like how we get in our own way. And I talk a lot in my private lessons about it. Like as adults, we do so much getting in our own way, but not on purpose. And that's, I think, a big distinction that we have to talk about is like, so many people come to voice lessons and they're like, okay, just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do better. And then I will fix it, right? And we think of them as like problems and fixes. And when you fix the problem, it will go away forever. But that's not really how our human bodies work. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's as easy as just showing yourself a new way of doing things, and then it's just like learning a new new vocabulary in a new language. You just start using them more often, and you can keep doing that forever. But sometimes it's harder than that, because as adults, especially, we have habits that are very ingrained over not just years or months, but decades of these habits that we have learned to relate to our voice in a certain way. And so many of us come into vocal training for the first time and they go, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? And that question is already inherently putting yourself at fault, when so much of this is super not your fault. Yes. How does that feel to hear that? Let me know. Let me know if you have ever thought that before. When you're trying to go in your head voice and trying to go up, higher than you usually sing, so often we think, okay, what's wrong with me? Why can't I go higher? I was having this conversation today. Maybe I'm just an alto, right? Maybe I'm just an alto and I only have a certain amount of high notes that I can sing, and this is about my limit, and I will never be able to sing above that. But that's also not how the human body works. We can stretch and we can learn and evolve as singers, just like we do in other parts of our life, right? Like if you've ever tried to get into yoga or any other kind of thing where that it involves flexibility, you're going to start off being pretty inflexible. And that doesn't dictate your ability forever. You don't have most of us don't have that like stopping point. Like if you're trying to touch your toes and you can only get down to your knees, like inherently we know that with more stretching and more practice, you will be able to expand where you're able to stretch to. We don't just give up. At least most of us. Some of us do. Some of us are like, oh, I can only touch my knees. I'm giving up forever, right? But if that's something you want, is more flexibility in your body, then every day you work a little bit towards that goal to build up the flexibility, and you go to right on your edge, and you hang out there until that edge becomes more comfortable. And so then when that edge is more comfortable, it's not your edge anymore, you can start to expand a little bit by little bit. Same thing with your voice, except the muscles are much smaller, right? So if you're working on your higher range, like for some reason we put all this pressure on singing, and we say, oh, that's as high as I can go and I will never be able to go any higher. But that's not true. If you stretch yourself, just like in yoga, if you stretch yourself to your edge and you do a little bit of that every day, that will now become your comfort zone, and your edge has now moved, right? That's what we're doing. We're expanding little bit by little bit, and we're changing habits, right? Or if your habit has been to just hang out in your comfort zone, in your chest voice, in your normal speaking range, like most people who who are testosterone influenced, like that is all you're gonna ever do, right? If you're not feeling comfortable enough to play in any other parts of your voice, if you're not comfortable enough to stretch, then your body's not going to stretch into that place. It's not a set thing that is your talent and your ability forever. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone a little bit in order to make those stretches happen. Same thing with habits. If you have a habit that you've been doing for many, many years, it's going to feel weird to get out of that comfort zone. So if your habit is when you go up into your head voice, if you pull back and make it really breathy, if that's the only version of head voice that you know, that's going to be where your comfort zone is for that. And you are not, if you're not willing to play outside of that, to derail that habit and make your muscles choose a different way of relating to that area in your voice, then you're not going to be able to expand what's possible for your voice. Let me know if this is landing, and if this relates to you at all. I think it's really important, especially as adults, to think of singing like we think of any other part of our journey, right? Like if you get a new job and you don't know that job yet, we don't get down on ourselves and we say, oh, I better give up. I'm never going to be able to learn anything new or expand my abilities. No, we keep going to work and we keep learning new things, even though it's uncomfortable. And we eventually, if you look back over 6 months, all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I know how to do that now. It's no problem. It's not a challenge for me anymore. And then you keep learning new things and you keep being promoted and you keep doing harder and harder jobs, theoretically. Some people don't. So it's the same with singing, like, except the outside world for some reason puts all this pressure on singing, and we definitely have a big myth to bust that you're born with this talent. And, you know, Ariana Grande was just, you know, coming out of the womb singing those whistle notes, and that's not true, you guys. It's not true. Has been singing since she was a child and has been vocal training since she was a child, and that is why she's able to do what she can do now. It's not just that was bestowed upon her and she's always been able to sing like that, you know what I mean? And all these, like, I get on my soapbox about this a lot, but like these shows like The Voice and American Idol have given us this false sense of, oh, this person is good, this person is not good enough. And so if you hear any of the things in your voice that happened to them, like if somebody on The Voice was straining and they didn't quite hit a note, or if a judge said they were off pitch, and you hear the same kind of things in your voice, we're so trained to just be like, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't have the talent. I better stop, right? But what kind of person does that in any other part of your life? No, if you want something, if you want this job, you learn how to do the things that are required in that job, right? If you want to be more flexible, you show up to your yoga mat every day and you stretch. And even if you're not touching your toes, you might get a centimeter closer, and you keep saying, okay, things are changing, things are happening. But for some reason with singing, we don't do that. We don't allow ourselves that gap between good enough and not good enough, you know? So these habits are formed because of that gap. We go into singing every time with this idea of, this is my range, and here is an impossible part of my range. So I'm just going to not even try to touch that. And so we write songs that are in our comfort zone. We tell people, I'm an alto. I am not a soprano. I'm not even going to try to sing those notes because I might hurt your ears. No, it's not. That's not how we show up for any other part of our lives. Most of us, anyway. Yeah, I definitely struggle with finding my playful side and stretching out of my comfort zone gradually and with mercy towards myself. That is so important. That second half of that, stretching out of your comfort zone gradually and with mercy towards yourself. Give yourself some grace. I don't know if you've ever tried to learn a new skill before, but you're gonna suck first. And that is a really hard thing for most adults, because as soon as we're adults, we're like, find the thing you're good at and just go 100% in that direction. And if you try anything else and you're not good at it, don't even try. Right? And this is how we become stuck in little boxes. You know, like, oh, Sarah, she's the singer person. You know, John, he's the piano player person. But there's more parts to ourselves, right? Like, I'm not just a singer. I'm also pretty good at, you know, being an admin person. That was my job for a long time. I'm also pretty good barista. I did that for a long time. I used to be a long distance swimmer. Nobody knows that about me. I have a degree in Japanese. I am a multitudinous person because I expanded my comfort zone in all of those areas at some point and learned how to do things that seemed impossible at the time. I didn't think I could ever swim 6 miles by myself, but I worked up to it. I expanded outside my comfort zone. And we think of this in sports, no problem. But for some reason in singing, we think, oh, this is all I can do. I am not even going to try because I might let out a weird sound or two. And oh my God, that might kill me, right? That's how we think of it. It helps so much when I see a successful pop star hit an off note or make a small mistake. It helped me remember that they're human too, with human voices that have limitations. Absolutely. I love watching pop stars mess up. It's my favorite thing. Because exactly, right? Like, we put them up on such pedestals because we think, oh, that Ariana, she has never made a mistake in her whole life. Of course she has. Like, I'm sure there's video out there of her in a studio, like trying stuff, playing around, messing up, quote unquote, hitting weird notes, straining to hit certain notes until she decides to do it in a different way. Same with anybody before they had vocal training. You're gonna try things from your habit, right? Which for a lot of us is over pushing, over efforting, or not efforting enough from the right places. And I talk about that in other videos, the fight flight response as it shows up for you as a singer. So I think it's really important to look at yourself and say, you know what? It is okay for me to be in this gray area. I'm going to step outside my comfort zone one little bit. I'm going to take one toe outside my comfort zone, and I'm going to try and sing a higher note than what feels like super comfort zone, right? Everybody has that note where they're like, oh, that's my limit. Maybe we try something else. And this is what vocal training is for, like giving you different ways to feel things in your body. So for example, let's follow this head voice metaphor. If you're trying to expand into your higher register, into your head voice without it feeling squeaky or tight or closed or tiny or breathy, which is the default for a lot of people, because when you go to sing a high note, we think, oh, I gotta work, I gotta make sure that comes out right, and we care so much that we just everything goes into it. This is if you're a fighter. So we go right, and you can tell either because your muscles are tight or because you feel a closing happening, or if the sound gets really tiny, that there's a whole lot going on. And maybe we try it coming from a different perspective. And this is why, if you've worked with me, in order to get up into your head register, the first thing I'll do is have you just talk in like a character voice, like a SpongeBob or a Mickey Mouse or something, like ha ha, ha ha, which is automatically a different shape than you are probably used to doing it, right? You feel more openness in here just based on that vowel alone. Ha ha, right? And then you feel that same head voice feeling, but without the closure, without the squeakiness, without the over efforting in your vocal muscles. And that already is showing your body that you can do that high note stuff, but from a different coordination, different muscle setup, right? So instead of going, ah, you end up finding that you can make a sound up there if you're not putting so much dang pressure on it, right? We put so much pressure on our singing voice because it has to be pretty, it has to be perfect, it has to have the perfect vibrato, it has to be clean sounding. No, you want to know how those people got there? A whole bunch of ugly ass notes, a whole bunch of them. So that's why I say pretend in a character voice, because for so much of us, it takes the pressure off. Because if I'm being Mickey Mouse, I don't care how it sounds. It's Mickey that's the issue, right? Not Sarah. Ha ha, hey Donald, how you doing? That kind of a feeling. And now I'm giving my body, my nervous system more evidence that I can make those higher sounds without all that crunching, right? So the next step from there is to then maybe sing in a Mickey voice, like, oh, happy birthday to you. And then you're finding more space, both vowel-wise and in your pharynx, and you're releasing these muscles a little more. So coming at it from a completely different side and then showing up there again and again, like you said, stretching out of your comfort zone gradually and giving yourself lots of grace and mercy and saying, okay, maybe I can make a note that is up here past what I thought was my limit before, but maybe I have to just brain hack my way into it, And so I think it's the power of play is so important when it comes to your singing and expanding yourself. And the growth that everybody is looking for is past the point where you feel is reasonable for you to try and sing. And that's in so much of what we do, right? If you want to touch your toes, you have to be willing to say, okay, here's what's reasonable. I need to stretch my muscles just a little more. And so you take a deep breath, and then you find yourself a centimeter further than you were before. Same thing with the voice. It's just being willing to try and to possibly make a weird sound, right? You may not hit those notes perfectly right away when you're singing as Mickey Mouse or whoever, but the being willing to feel something else, to use a different mechanism, to feel a different shape, the being willing to possibly make a weird, ugly, wobbly sound is a prerequisite for growth. Hopefully that makes sense. Raise your hand if this is something you needed to hear today. So often with singing, we are so set on this is what I want, and this is how far away I am from it, and I'm not willing to be uncomfortable anywhere in here. That's not how growth happens, unfortunately. You're going to have to be uncomfortable a little bit at a time. Just don't force yourself to go all the way to there, because that is, you're unleashing like worlds of what's the word I'm looking for, of instinct. Like you're accessing like your reptile self if you try and put yourself in a situation that's like 10 steps past where your comfort zone is. Your turtle self is going to be like, nope, and you're going to tighten up and go right back in your shell, right? Yes, I'm glad this relates, that this helps in any way. The stuff I'm learning about the nervous system is just this, like we have very, very old hardware that we were born with that makes us relate to our comfort zone in a very different way than other humans, right? Or other, yeah, some of us other humans, some of us we relate in a very different way based on our experiences in the past. You know, if you have a history of this freeze response, this turtling, that is how you have related to a lot of different conflict, and anything outside of your comfort zone, that's how you feel the most safe. And so that's how your nervous system relates to that. And it's not your fault. Again, like I said at the beginning, a lot of this stuff we think is our own fault. This stuff especially is not your fault. Your nervous system was set up at birth and then hardwired until you were like 6 or 7. And so you didn't really have a say in what happened before you were 6 or 7. So this is how you're set up. Now, we can change and train and expand how your nervous system relates to certain things, which is evidenced by the fact that if you've ever learned to do anything new, this is the process I'm talking about. You take one little step outside your comfort zone, and then that is now the expanded version of your comfort zone. You take another little step outside your comfort zone, that is now the expanded version of your comfort zone. So if you've ever learned to ride a bike or drive or tie your shoes or talk to people without so much anxiety, like, this is a thing that you can do. This is nervous system training. All of it is. So if you're trying to reach higher notes in your voice and you have said the phrase out loud, I can never sing that high, this is where I want you to start noticing. Would I ever say that about a kid who was learning how to ride a bike? Probably not. You're going to keep telling them it's totally possible. I know because I did it, right? And this is my job. It's totally possible. I know because I did it. This is what I'm saying to you. So in those moments where you find yourself identifying with this little small box of yourself as a singer, this is what's possible in my voice, that is when I want you to start to notice, okay, what if that wasn't true? What if I stopped saying that for 6 months? That's just my goal, right? What if instead of saying, I can't do that, that's past what's possible, you start to say, okay, let's find where what's possible right now and where that is different. And we start to not force ourselves to get all the way up to that, but we start to step out into that gap just a teeny little bit every day. Teeny, 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 teeny. This is what trains the nervous system into relating to different possibilities, different sounds that you're making, relating to different skills that you're learning in your voice in different ways. So if you have since you were a kid related to your high voice as a non-possibility, if you have always related to yourself as an alto, as a low-voiced singer, this is where your nervous system has solidified itself, right? It's a very strong box that you've put yourself in. But that's not to say that it's your fault that you did that. It's just what happened. And it's also not to say that that box cannot be softened and expanded. Yes? Do you believe me when I say that? I'm wondering if normally high self-confidence people have an easier time singing. I also wonder if high self-confidence means lower inhibition. Oh no, that's a very related thing. You're right on a really important track. For me, yes, people with higher self-confidence usually have a stronger, how do I want to say this? They have a stronger feeling of safety in most situations. And that is also not their fault. That's how they were raised, right? They have been raised and taught over the course of their life to believe that making weird sounds in front of people is not a dangerous act. Whereas you might have experience in your life that making weird sounds in front of people is a dangerous act, right? And that's, again, not your fault. So yeah, absolutely. There's some people that can step on stage having never done it before and sing karaoke and make a fool of themselves, and they don't care because they have lower inhibitions, because their nervous system doesn't relate to that as a dangerous thing. you may feel completely differently, and that's okay. It's why some people can, do a speech without practicing and not have any stage fright. It also is how you relate to other people and personality differences and where you are on the neurodivergent spectrum and a whole host of other layers that we don't think about. But there's a lot of reasons that is more true for some people than others, for sure. So yeah, it's definitely a thing to think about, and something that I don't want you to beat yourself up over, because again, that's not something that it was probably in your control when that perspective was solidified in your nervous system. So hopefully that's helpful and takes the pressure and blame off of you a little bit. However, now that we know more about the nervous system, we can start taking steps to change our hardware a little bit, just tweaking little things about our hardware. And so you may not feel able to ever sing in front of anybody right now, and that is how you identify as like, nope, I do not sing in front of people. That is me, and that will be me forever. But I'm not asking you to go sing at an open mic right now, because that would be so scary for your nervous system, right? That would be definitely an observed threat for your nervous system, and it would be like, nope, 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 that feels dangerous, turtle. But if we start in different ways, we start in little minute moments where maybe you record a video of yourself and you send it to me. That way, somebody else has heard you sing. And that is now your expanded comfort zone, right? Maybe you do it 2 or 3 or 4 times so that you don't feel like it's an impossibility anymore, right? You look back and you're like, oh, I did that. That was a thing. I survived. And then your nervous system's like, oh, okay, that's a thing that is not a problem, right? And then you start to expand and expand and expand little bits. For sure, there's so many people like that. And then we get into like introvert and extrovert, and if you believe in star signs and moon signs and what that does for people, yeah, I would have a hunch she's like a Leo at some level of her chart and just wants to be seen all the time. But many performers have some version of that. Totally. But that is just her nervous system, right? That's where she feels safe in being observed. Some people need to be observed. That's where they feel safe. When they're not being observed, they don't feel safe. How interesting is that, to look at that polarity, right? So it's very interesting to think about how maybe your friend who is like the sun and needs to be observed, how she was brought up in relation to performing and singing and being the center of attention and all that, how her and her people who raised her related to that versus how you and your people who raised you related to that. But moral of the story, before I'm done here, is don't think that it's your own fault that you are not where you want to be. Yes, it's not your fault that your nervous system was hardwired the way it is. However, we have the tools, and we're learning so much more all the time about how to change that. So the things you want to do with your voice that you feel like you can't do right now, don't identify with that. Just don't keep solidifying that for yourself. Allow yourself to question those things and say, what if there's a different way of thinking about this? What if I ask for help and I say, I really want to sing that high note. Sarah, can you help me how to figure out how to do that? Great, let's do it. And then I will help you through it. And then it'll feel scary the first time, and you'll be like, holy crap, I did that. And then we'll do it again. And you'll be like, oh my God, I did it again. And then it will start to feel less and less scary, and your nervous system will stop seeing it as a threat. And then that will be now a part of you forever. And of course, things change over time. If you don't do it very often, your nervous system might go back to thinking, that was a little scary. So it's a thing that we need to continue to do all the time. And of course, we have phases. We are evolving human beings, and sometimes we get really in the practice of something and it feels really great, and that becomes not a scary thing. And then we leave it alone for 2 years, and then it becomes a scary thing again. And that is also okay, because we are evolving and we have phases and things change and shift and all that. So for me, for example, I was like 4 or 5 years ago, I was really working on expanding my range. And so I was working on my lows, especially because I identify as a soprano, right? After the whole conversation. And so I was working on expanding my lows. And so a little bit every day I would practice going, oh, even though it felt weird and it sounded gross. I did it anyway. And because I wanted to expand my low range, and I have not done that in a couple of years, going back to it now, trying to work on my low voice, doing a little bit every day, every other day, so that it becomes more in my comfort zone again. So, yeah, what you do matters with the energy that you bring to it. And you can change things that you previously identified with. Man, I have been 700 people in this lifetime. It's really interesting. I'm doing an assignment right now for a program I'm doing that has me go back and look at big milestones in my life. And it's freaking shocking to see how many different people I've been in the 36 years that I've been on this planet. It's crazy. Just goes to show you have done this work before. Even if it feels hard, even if singing feels like the hardest thing you've ever done, changing your singing voice and expanding it, you have done harder things. I can almost guarantee it. It's just the weight that we put on singing. So question that. Change how you have solidified that in your brain. It's possible. I love you very much. It's not your fault that you're not where you want to be. Yes, good. I'm glad that landed for you, Allison. Yep, that's all of us. I am the queen of FOMO. I get it. I'm here with you. But that is a part of our little reptile brain thinking, nope, that's too hard. I can't. And then we think, oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I not expanding all the time, constantly? Because we're humans. And you're taking steps. You just did an amazing thing. You just took a big step out of your comfort zone. You released an album, right? So you're growing. It's happening. You're doing all the right things. And if you need help, that's what I'm here for. That's why I have this place, this channel. That's why I show up here every Tuesday. That's why I have my private studio. That's why I have Vocal Magic. And this is why I am opening this new program for people who, for weekly private sessions, it feels just like too much, either time commitment or financially. So this is for you. This is why I'm opening this, for you to show up for your voice in even a small way, a little bit every week. Even if it's not every week, if you skip a week, fine, who cares? You're an adult, you do you. But I'm here for you every month, right? So if you decide to join the basic plan, you still get a monthly live session with me. Every month I show up, we do talk about the theme of the month, and we do hot seat singing. So you show up and you sing and you get feedback from me. You can also, as part of this program, send me videos. Every month you can send me a couple videos and I will send you feedback and say, okay, work on this. See if you can feel this in a different way. And this is how we start to shape our perception of things. And you also get this community of other singers who are dealing with the same stuff. So if you show up and you say, man, I'm having a really hard day, somebody else is going to show up and be like, man, that was my day yesterday. You're so not alone. I was feeling that same thing. You talk about your gremlins and what your gremlins say, and maybe your gremlins say the same thing. We have twin gremlins. Just that is so comforting and motivational, just to know that you're not alone in what you feel is you're the only one struggling. So this is what this program is all about. You have the magic. I'm just fostering, asking the right questions, being the bumpers for you in a way that is very low pressure for you. So if this is what's right for you, let's do it. If you also want to add a private session with me every month, there's the VIP program. So pick whichever one works best for you and come join us. This first cohort, the doors are open until February 5th. So we got another 3 weeks or so. So, but I do have a limit on especially VIP sessions. There's only 5 spots for that. So if you want to do that, get in now. The link is in the thing. So if you have questions, I'm here. My messages are always open. Happy to chat with you on a Zoom call real quick if you want. If you want me to listen to your voice and just reassure you that you're in the right place, you are in the right place. But if you're one of those people that's like, just tell me I'm doing it right, I'm happy to do that for you. This is my job. I am the cheerleader. So yeah, let me know if you have questions. Let's get to work this year. This is the time. This is your time for you to take your little steps, right? Little steps, not in a bad way, little steps in a nervous system healthy way. Yes, taking little steps towards the bigger steps, because it's so much easier for your body, your mind, your soul to expand a little bit, little bit, little bit. And this is why it's a monthly program, because you can show up and one month you might be really busy. Cool. Show up the next month. We're working all the time and you show up for as long as you need to. Sound good? Thank you. Thanks for being here, Sam and Allison. Appreciate you. And if you're also on the call and I don't know you, thank you for being here and I love you. Such a good conversation. Thank you for chiming in. Appreciate you. So yeah, Enchanted Voice membership is open now. Doors are open for the next couple weeks, so get in there. It's going to be a good time. I'm really excited to get started. Our first call is going to be next Monday. Just like a welcome call for everybody who's in it so far. So I highly recommend joining now. And then our next call, I believe I have scheduled for the 5th, February 5th. So the day the doors close will be our big whole group call. So come hang out. It's going to be a lovely community that we're creating. It's inside of my bigger overarching community for all of my students. So you might see some of my other private students, my vocal magic students chime in sometimes and share their experiences. You know, if you post in the bigger group, you get more singer friends to help you out. So thank you for being here. Love you. Appreciate you. Go tell your singer friends about this program. If you have other singer friends, I'm sure you do, who are in the same boat, who are like, I don't have the space for private lessons. Great. This is what it's all about. Come join us. I love you very much. I'll see you later. Goodbye.